What is up, guys? So this was not necessarily a video I thought I would end up doing in the end, but I've had enough questions, enough people commenting on it, enough people asking for my input that I figured I would in the end. You'll probably have seen similar videos from a lot of the other YouTubers, particularly the ones that are more raid related on stuff like this. But today I wanted to, and drum roll, you know, if we rewind the clock a couple of years, this would be a scary thing to do. I'm going to talk a little bit about DPS meters, and particularly the meter that I've been running in-game. It's an explanation of some of the user interface stuff and add-on stuff that you've been seeing on my videos recently, and a lot of you guys have been saying, oh, how is that possible? How do you know? So, for example, when we did the frost gun build, which does absolutely ridiculous damage, and when I had targets highlighted, like, say, this Cosmic Shadow Leaper over here, I zoomed in on the health bar, and you guys noticed that I can not only see that this guy is at 100% health, but I can actually see that he has exactly 14,985 health. I can see his exact value, and I can see that this guy over here has 157,000 health. Like, that he's way tankier, just from a brief glance. Now, this idea of being able to see exact enemy health on anything in Guild Wars 2, various entities, is something a lot of us have wanted for ages and ages and ages, and while that is now totally acceptable and it's something you can do, anyone can do, since the developers' most recent AMA, where they said that DPS meters were okay. So, let's talk a little bit about this, and let's talk about what I run. I run something called BGDM, and I'm just going to show you guys essentially what BGDM is all about and how it works. And kind of a very brief, because this is a big topic, a very brief take on how I feel about this stuff. So one thing we all hopefully understand very well about Guild Wars 2 is it was trying to break away from a lot of the animosity that ends up sort of gripping a lot of MMO players, where you don't like the people that you're around, where you can discriminate very heavily against the people who are around you, and kind of just people can be scumbags to one another, right? Guild Wars 2 is always supposed to step away from that. And you find in a lot of other traditional MMOs that DPS meters are like this really shitty thing, because essentially what they do is they give people just more opportunities and more avenues to discriminate against one another, and that's never really fun, right? Oh, we wiped on the encounter, I saw that this guy was at the bottom of the pile for the damage. Maybe there was very good reason he was bottom of the pile, but it doesn't matter, I'm just going to instantly kick him anyway. So people have always, you know, winced a bit at the idea of DPS meters coming into GW2, and the question is, like, do they fit? The truth is that for a long time, since raids really became a thing in this game, people in the community, a lot of people in the community were running meters, but they were technically illegal. The devs hadn't really said, well, the devs technically hadn't said anything about them, but they'd remained silent, and no one was really sure if they were breaking the rules, because they were sort of looking into memory, even hacking memory. And it was just kind of a bit weird. So in the most recent AMA, they said, look, as long as it's nothing too crazy, as long as you're not gear checking people, and, you know, these levels of discrimination don't go too high, we're going to let you guys do it, and we'll see how things go. My experience, since this has happened, is actually it's helped the community in general appreciate what builds are good and what builds aren't. See, before DPS meters and before this was the actual information and efficacy of builds was really laid on the line, most of us in this game, who play LFG, right, and, you know, play kind of casually, we'd go to do some raids, we'd go to the aerodrome, and the way we decide what build we play is just seeing what the maximum number is that we can find online, like through respected benchmarkers, and we'd say, ah, that's the best build. It might be a really squishy build, it might be a really situational build, and it might require incredible amounts of finesse to pull it off, but because that does the max damage, that's what I'm going to play. And what we found was, Elementalist specifically, hey, that's the class I main, so I'm well aware of this. A lot of people would play like very glassy Ellie builds and kind of be terrible at them and pull really low numbers on them, but think that they were doing amazingly. And what DPS meters have done is kind of show us that, hold on, maybe Elementalist isn't the be-all and end-all. Maybe we should look at things like Thief, right? If you guys remember when raiding was first a thing, the balance is slightly different, but thieves were really doggedly sneered on, and probably more so than they deserved, because Thief is really comfortable, easy, and consistently high damage. And we're seeing all kinds of different Condi builds now. People value a lot more since DPS meters became more of a thing. We're seeing just like people broadening the horizons. Guild Wars 2 was in kind of what I would describe like an immature state when raids first came out, in terms of like just a very young perspective of, oh, let's just all go for the highest damage stuff. And I think now the mindset of your average player is starting to mature a little bit more into, okay, maybe the theoretical max isn't the be-all and end-all. Maybe what we should look at is what can consistently and comfortably do very high damage, right? Like when I can go on a power engineer, which I've also talked about on the channel recently, and do really consistently good damage because a DPS meter has shown me that, and I'm out damaging a lot of the Condi NGs that I play with. You know, that shows me that power NG is worth something. In theory, Condi NG is just straight up better, but in practice, the power NG still has a place, right? And that's why I'm kind of enjoying the DPS meters right now, and that's why I've kind of got along with this. So I run BGDM, and that's really what I'm going to be talking about a little bit here today. Just so that you guys know, there are kind of two branches of DPS meters, okay? One is essentially the idea of predicting or registering exactly what damage you do, but then predicting what the damage of your allies is based on the skills that we can see that they're using. And that can be ever so slightly inaccurate, especially when it comes to condition damage. That's one type of DPS meter. Or there's another type, which is what BGDM does, which is everyone runs it on their clients in your group, and then you look at your own DPS. BGDM will read your own DPS. It doesn't have to predict anything. It knows it's there. It will be 100% accurate, and then it uploads to a mutual server for everyone all at once. So the more people who run BGDM, essentially, it's just straight up better. It's more accurate. Now, the actual amount that BGDM is more accurate than its competitors is incredibly slim and really doesn't mean very much. But as a result, a lot of people in LFG, if you were to go to raiding LFGs, we're not exactly at a peak hour right now, so I don't really know who's going to be here. But people will often, these guys are selling. People will often say hey, I've got BGDM, or we're looking for BGDM. So this is kind of why I'm running this. It's really simple to install. If you guys have ever followed my reshade guides, it's basically the exact same thing. It's totally legal and accepted by Arena. They said it's fine. You just drop it into your installation folder, and that's basically it. When you press, once you've got it running, when you press Control, Shift, and 0, you can get this little options menu. And I want to show you guys what's really cool about it, because it's not even necessarily just the damage tracking, it's the other stuff. It's the stuff like I showed at the start of this video, knowing that this eagle has exactly 1 health. And we can kill him, and we can overkill him by several 100,000 or something. It's so cool. It's these little features are what I find more interesting, and particularly buff uptime. So, what's cool about BGDM is it's very customizable. I'll talk about its downsides in just a second. Oh, it looks like we've got the Terraria event is rolling here. That's brilliant. But let's look at some of the other things that BGM is actually capable of, and there's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out. We can also turn on target distance. So what this is an extra piece of information. Now, if I target this eagle all the way over here, not only do we get to see he's got 100% health and he's got 1 out of 1 health, but also on the far right, we get this number here, 2,106. What does 2,106 mean? Well, that's Guild Wars 2's units of measurement for range. So if you had a skill that had 2,106 range, you could hit that Sparkfly here. And so you guys should be more than aware that the highest range stuff we typically get in the game is 1,800 range stuff. So what that means is if I walk to here, if I was a longbow ranger, I'd actually be able to shoot that Sparkfly right now. I would be in range of it. So, you know, if we go to our inventory here and we equip, say, a staff, my Bifrost here. These are mostly 1200 range skills, chain lightning. For those of you that don't know, underneath skills in Guild Wars 2, there's a very vague red bar that shows whether you're in range of your target or not for that particular skill. So when this 1700 goes to less than 1200, you'll see my 1200 range auto attack is now in range because the red bar will go away. Ready? So, boom, there you go, as you can see. So this is a nice little range indicator. Practically speaking, I prefer using the red bars beneath my skill icons to tell me whether I'm in range for something or not. I'm really not sure where else this would be useful. There are some classes that got traits that's do more or less damage based on range. So maybe you care about that. But to me, I like my user interface to be as clean as possible. So I don't typically use this. One thing that kind of annoys me about BGDM a little bit is when you opt in to see the target HP, it also gives you their percent health. And it's I don't need their percent health. ArenaNet natively added the ability to see the percentage amount of health that they've got ages ago. I'd rather use ArenaNet's native one than this, but man, that's me being a little bit picky. So we got that. We've also got player HP. Turning this on is just a percentage health representation of what your health is here. In all honesty, this is actually pretty cool, and I probably should use for any power build, because as you guys know, the power classes get scholar runes, typically, and the scholar runes do more damage when you're at high health. And a lot of us even have traits that just do more damage while we're at above 90% health. And this will tell you at a glance whether you're there or not. I just don't really use that. I feel like whether I can see that I'm at 90% health or higher often doesn't impact my actual rotations or anything too much. So I don't really do it. They've also got a compass feature. I really don't care about the compass. But if you want to know at a glance whether you're looking north, east, south, or west, or whatever, you can. It's just a bit small for me, maybe. I don't know. Maybe there's somewhere I could fill that in. But again, I like my clean user interface. Target break bar as well. What this is it's like the health thing, but for break bars. So if we fly down into the Burnished Quarry, this big guy here, you just see it sort of spawn, right? So here we can see he's got 100% break bar right there. I think they could actually do a bit better with that and show the exact number of break bar points he's got, because different CCs do different amounts of damage. That might be interesting, but maybe it doesn't matter too much. There currently are no traits or anything in the game that care about like percentage of break bar amount on enemy. That might be curious, but the devs have never done that. So again, I don't really feel like I need target break bar. So those are really some of the big things. Or the little things, sorry. Now let's talk about the big things. So these bottom three down here, these are really, these are what you're going to be using in raid scenarios. And these are what like track the damage that you're doing and really kind of show you how your build is. Now, I know some of us might still be a little bit wincing at the idea of damage meters, but I gotta say, guys, when you run this stuff, it can be genuinely quite fun. You know that experience when you're at a world boss and you're just sort of using all your skills and you don't know how much you've contributed to that world boss? And you're kind of having fun, but you don't really know. Well, when you run a meter like BGDM, it kind of turns things on its head and gives you something that you actually can see how well you're doing, because you get your own little number that you can see how it's going up and down. And for that, I kind of really do enjoy running this, just from like a pure fun perspective. So first, let's have a look at target stats. So this is a little window here that will drop up. By the way, there's a method of, what is it, options? There's a method of like making these windows even smaller on your UI here. We can go like tiny here. Minimal panels, there you go. We can go minimal panels. So, you know, you get like a really nice little panel that you can put just under your meta event or something like that, and you'll go with it. There's lots of little options. Again, this is one of the things I actually quite like about BGDM at the moment. We'll put minimal panels off. Anyway, so target stats. So, like, for example, at the bottom here, you've got TTK. That means time to kill, and you'll see it says 0 minutes and 0 seconds. When I start fighting this guy, I'm on a very tanky build right now. I'm on a support build, basically. But here, like that was something fun there. I took full damage and saw that it took exactly 10% of my health, right? But so here, you'll see, at my current damage that I'm doing, it will take me 1 minute, 30 seconds longer to kill this Zotkul Crusher, right? Like, I can see that there. I can see how long it's going to take me to kill him. And as we do other stuff, we can see, like, what the global amount of damage that's coming in on him is. Imagine I've got a Zerg with me right now. So it's showing all the damage numbers. Like, this is the damage he is taking from everywhere. And all the kind of stats that are related specifically to him, right? So I've been fighting him for 30 seconds, as you can see. And so, like, this panel's okay. It's more of, like... I personally never really use this target stats panel. I suppose if you really cared about stuff, you could run that. But this one's a little bit less interesting to me. This is, you know, kind of the least interesting to me of the three that we've got. So we'll turn that off. Next, we have group stats. And so group stats is really the one a lot of people care about. I actually would argue it's not the best thing, but it is very, very cool. This is the actual damage meter, okay? So what you're looking at here on this window, all right, is you're seeing my player name. Now, if I had other people in my squad with me, you'd see other names beneath, you know, all the way down up to 10 people, right? Which is the size that you would have in a raid squad. Oh God, this guy, I thought he was going to die to the burning and he didn't. We do so little damage right now. So you would see, you'd see all of our names. And then what the game is doing is it's telling us, like, our class, well, we can customize this, which I'll get to in a second. But it's telling us, like, a variety of different stats and numbers that you care about compare your numbers to everyone else in there, right? So imagine that there was a second player here. I was only doing 890 damage a second, just 890 damage. And for what it's worth, you know, really good raiders will be doing around 30,000 damage a second, right? So that's a huge difference there. I was only doing about 800 damage a second, and you know, it was showing me how much damage I put in and what I healed up as well, right? So at some point over the course of that, I took 9,000 damage, and then by the end of it, I'd healed all of that back up after we left combat, right? So here you can see at a glance, with the way I've got this set up, I can see at a glance everyone in my squad, what class they are, how much damage they're doing, and I've got this set up so that the person at the top, you know, the person with the most damage at the top, and then it will slowly sink down. I can see who was getting hit a lot, potentially more than they otherwise would have to, who was not getting healed enough. You can see all those little stats. So if you wiped on a raid, you can be like, okay, all right, we died here, what's our problem? Is it that this person's not being healed enough? Is it this person's maybe not dodging enough, and so forth, right? Or is it because maybe this Tempest is somehow doing so much more damage than this one? It lets you adjust your builds, right? But better than that, you can like customize it, right? So you can change what will actually appear on these columns. So for me, I don't have many. I've got class, I've got the damage that you're doing every second, I've got the damage that you take, and how much healing, right? That's it. But you could turn on healing per second. You could turn on damage percent. So like if we had 10 people and 10 people are all attacking this cattle over here, we can see that, you know, List did 10% of its health, while the warrior somehow did like 40% of its health. Wow, that warrior did 40% of all the damage in the entire group. That's awesome, right? So you can see stuff like that, and that might be fun to see if you are that warrior. Or it might be fun to see that you did like 0.5% of his health because you were on a healer or something, yeah? And so then you get a couple of other little things based on how long it will lock on and when it will start actually tracking the numbers and stuff. So that's group stats. That's the main one that people will look for. The more people that run BGDM, the more of you that will appear there. And if you ever see this up on a video, that's basically what it's showing. This is a comparison between, you know, how everyone's doing in the group, and that's the main one that everybody loves, all right? But here's my favorite, and I really do mean this. Buff uptime, baby. This is cool stuff. I really like buff uptime. So that's exactly what it says on the tin. What this does is throughout the course of any fight, it will track how much you had of various buffs on you. And this is really, really useful because so much of what it means to be good in Guild Wars 2 at raiding and so forth, or even in fractals, wherever you like, right? Even if you're running around in the open world, and this is fun for the open world. This is not just for raiders, right? So much of it is like how much buff uptime you managed to keep on yourself. Did you manage to have 25 might the whole way through? Did you maintain fury on yourselves forever? Like, I remember in the really early days where some groups started to do incredibly well at dungeons and lots of other people were still struggling and staying at pure range and stuff. Like, nobody understood how amazing fury was. And it was the people that were maintaining perma fury on their groups that were like dominating in terms of like blasting their way through dungeons and stuff. People just didn't know that at the time. Well, these days we've got all these handy tools to see, you know, do we actually have permanent fury? So here you're actually seeing the way I've got this set up. You've seen a bunch of really cool buffs, and this is so fun to look back at, right? So that fight we just did where I slowly whittled down that Itzel, right? I can tell you that over the course of that fight, at no point, for 0% of the fight, did I have any Glyph of Empowerment. So that's a druid ability that buffs everyone's damage and condi damage. I had that for 0% of the time. I also had, on average, 0 stacks of Grace of the Land. So this will tell you, did you have an average 1 stack, 2 stacks, 2.5 stacks? Did you have, on average, all 5 stacks the whole way through the fight? It will tell you that. And I didn't have any stacks of Grace of the Land. Why? Because I'm just running around on my own doing a video with you guys. There are no druids with me. But it's told me that. It's told me, though, that on average, across that entire fight, I had 6 might on me. And I had 6 might because of Overload Fire here, and maybe if I accidentally comboed with an Aftershock or something. So that's kind of cool to see, right? I can also see that I had absolutely 0 Fury on me in that fight. I can see that I had 0% uptime of Alacrity. You know, these are all the really important buffs, guys. I had no quickness on me. But I did actually have almost half of the fight protection on me, even though I wasn't really trying to do protection. And why? Because I'm on a build that poos out a ton of protection, so that's why I had it. And here's the even funner ones, okay? These last 3 I really love. I can see exactly how long during the fight I had scholar buffs. So for 96% of that fight, I was at a high enough health to trigger my 10% damage for Scholar runes if I was wearing those, right? Which is super relevant when you're playing on like a damage class. So I've got that set up to show me that there. So this is really interesting because what this tells you is if you're consistently raiding and you're finding this number's really low, the Scholar uptime thing's really low, if you find that, there is a point where you'll realize that actually Scholar runes aren't the best runes for you to be running anymore, potentially, but instead something like Flame Legion runes, right? Which is instead of 10%, can we type this here? Which is 7% flat extra damage instead of 10% while you're over 10%, and you lose a little bit of ferocity on there as well. But like, if this is low enough, it tells you, hey, there's a different rune you can run, a rune that people wouldn't have thought about before. And that's just an example of how these meters have actually encouraged build diversity instead of doing the reverse, which I think is what a lot of us were worried about. So that's fun to look at. What might be even more to look at here is Seaweed Salad. So everybody knows like the power builds, it's do 10%, there's stuff like this, right? Do 10% more damage while moving. That's huge. So what it means is most people in Guild Wars 2 have like this very artificial sense of movement to the fights because we're just using, you know, A and D like this, moving left and right constantly. Or if you're really good at the game, you're rotating the camera constantly and making yourself feel sick so you never stop, right? And so have you ever had Seaweed Salad on you and wondered, I wonder how much I'm actually maintaining that buff? Am I strafing correctly? Like if you do it like this, then, you know, you're dropping uptime. Like, what is it? Well, guess what BGDM can do? It can tell you exactly how much of the time you had it up. So for 57% of that kill I made a second ago, I was under the effects of my Seaweed Salad buff, but only for 57%. Like, this is fun. This is almost stuff I feel like could just be in the game, right? Another fun one is downstate uptime. Like, so this could potentially be a bit of a discriminatory one, but like when you're raiding, you can see who went down, who spent the longest in downstate compared to everyone else. And then lastly, you got your class. And what's really fun about BGDM, again, is you can change the columns, right? So you can choose any number of different things you want to put on there, right? So I can go, columns, right? And I can say, all right, I want to see how much swiftness uptime I had. Now, I personally don't care about swiftness uptime, but if I click swiftness, check it out. It added swiftness onto there, and I can have a look at how much swiftness I've got. And if I want, I can put on, you know, every single thing in the game. One of the default ones that they have is, sorry guys, I'm kind of messing up here, is Aegis. So like Guardians have a trait that means they do 20% more damage while they have Aegis on them. Did you ever wonder how much time you were proccing that? Well, you can use the Aegis thing here. It's really, really cool. And you can do all the profession-specific stuff. You can see how long you had Rite of the Great Dwarf on you, right? Which is the Revenant Elite, which reduces incoming damage on people. You can see if you're playing a Healing Ellie in Fractals, how much you kept Soothing Mist on people. So, like, if I was setting up a Healing Ellie thing here for Fractals, or anywhere really, you know, I could have Soothing Mist uptime, and I could have Scholar uptime for my group, and I could have Protection uptime, and I can see how much I'm able to keep all of that stuff on my characters. It's not just about doing damage, it's about just how well does your build do what you're hoping it does. Does my build genuinely give 100% Protection uptime on everyone? Well, this last menu here can help you see stuff like that. And how badass is that? Like, honestly, I think it's brilliant. I really, really like the buff uptime, and I really like seeing how this compares after you've done like a long kill with a lot of people. So, right, like, and now I can just press F9, clear all of the numbers, and let's kill this Shadow Leaper, right? And let's see how much, again, Scholar uptime we can keep on ourselves. Let's see if we can keep a permanent Seaweed Salad and permanent Scholar as we fight this guy. Let's see if we can do it, right? And so that's like my attempt. I'm going to keep using W, A, S, and D. I'm going to kill the guy. I'm going to make sure he doesn't hit me once. Oh, he did hit me. He hit me right at the end. But here, see, we had 100% Scholar, we had 100% Seaweed on that one. But we had, and we had 100% Protection. See, that's interesting for me to see. I think that's cool. But yeah, so there you go, guys. That's BGDM. It's very customizable. It's really great. It's my DPS meter of choice, which is such a weird video to be making. But that's what you've been looking at. I had so many questions about people asking me this. And well, there you go. The one downside to BGDM is the dude who made it isn't really playing the game anymore. So over time, you may find the developers of other tools actually start to stand up and do a lot better. I like the UI for this though. I'd love to see a UI that uses the proper in-game fonts and everything that really seamlessly integrates into Guild Wars 2. I think that would be amazing if at any point somebody actually managed to do that, and I'd probably swap over. But in the meantime, this is kind of what I'm using, and yeah, that's how I got to show exact enemy health and all of that other good stuff. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Hope you learned a little bit something out of this. If this still really disturbs you, if this worries you, if it upsets you, don't just dislike the video and run off. Let's talk about it in the comments and see how we feel about this kind of stuff actually impacting Guild Wars 2. I've given you a little bit of my impression from it so far. Do you guys have some contrary opinions about, you know, it increasing ridiculous amounts of toxicity or anything? Because to me, so far, I feel like this has done nothing but help build diversity, and that has been cool to see. Feel free to refute me. I'll be in the comments. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.